Good morning and good evening to all of you, those who have joined us from the different parts of the world. And we welcome you to this session of the Fireside Chat Tech Series. This is an initiative where we invite industry leaders and to have an insightful session discussion on the trending topics. Today, we are going to discuss on from insights to impact, unleashing the power of data and analytics in IT. So, as the title suggests, we are going to talk a lot about data and analytics and how it is going. I mean, how it is going to help the IT industry or industry overall, and how crucial it is, apart from just not the data gathering, but then data literacy among the team members and how the data is encouraging all of our team members in having a concrete decision rather than making just a guesswork. And we are glad to have Mausam Deb today as our eminent speaker. Mausam is a global practice leader and senior director, technologies and data science, Clarivate. Mausam, welcome to this session of our Fireside Chat Tech Series. Let me just bring
Thank
you on
you.
the screen.
Hey, thank you. Thanks for calling me in here and thinking I could talk about technology.
All right. So Mausam has a huge experience with IT, analytics, and strategy consulting in multiple countries in the healthcare and life science industry. He specializes in scaling up digital and analytics practice and driving transformation for large multi-year, multi-geography programs for providers in healthcare and commercial operations in life science. Mausam, once again, welcome to the session. And we have Shridhar Purohit as well from EVRY India. Hi, Shridhar.
Hey,
Shridhar
thanks,
is going
Krishna.
to
Hi, all.
host this session today for us, and he is head of healthcare offerings at EVRY India. He has around 20 years of experience in developing product strategy, delivery management, program management, consulting, and implementation of business solutions. And Sridhar has been an integral part of our organization. And for the benefit of all our viewers today, today's topic is going to be industry agnostic, although they represent industry, healthcare as an industry, but they are going to talk about IT as a whole. And in this episode of Fireside Chat Tech Series, they are going to again talk in detail about advantages, difficulties, and readiness of the IT industry's path into data analysis. So, without any further ado, I would request Sridhar to please initiate this session. And to all our viewers, please enjoy the session. And we have a question and answer session at the end of this entire episode. We are going to keep around 15 minutes for that. You can post your questions in Q&A block, and from there our host or the moderator will be picking up the relevant questions. And Sridhar, the stage is all yours. Again, Mausam, thank you for your time and welcome to the session.
Thanks. Thanks, Krishna. Thanks for setting the stage. And good morning and good evening, all the viewers who have joined us. And welcome, Awesome. And first of all, I would like to start this with congratulating all of us here for the successful landing on the moon, which is Chandrayana. And thanks to Mausam again, because of the good Mausam on the moon, we were able to do this. Yeah. So that was a good one. Good landing, and congratulations to all of us for that. Mausam, as said, as we spoke, we will try to keep it as domain agnostic as much as we can. The reason is we have waivers from all the other areas, not only from one single domain. And to start with, let's explore together how data and analytics have become integral to shaping our world and driving the innovation. Keeping that in mind, Mausam, we want to start and set the stage with the first question, like not question, first part of the discussion, like can we imagine a world without data and analytics, and how different would our decisions and daily lives would be if data and analytics would not be there?
Ah, It's a good question. And hey, guys, thanks for inviting me. And as Sridhar said, it's going to be a fireside chat that you'll be firing a question and I have to answer. So I think It's very simple. Look left, right, talk to your customer. Is there anyone who is not talking about data?
Yeah,
That's a
true.
question, right? And
Everybody
that
not talking.
typically answers your question, right? So data is the future. And I'm not just telling the cliche again, saying the data is a new fuel, because I think now by now everyone understood it. Data is going to drive the organization, drive the industry, and hence drive the world. So I think the real question we should ask is that now we know that data is shaping industry. So we need to discuss possibly how is data shaping an industry, right? And possibly
Yeah,
what could be the challenges, because as we grow, data will be there, but we will face multiple challenges as well as multiple applications of it.
exactly. Very rightly said. Yeah. In the next set of discussion, we will flow through that. We will have like how innovations and how what are the challenges, what are the decision making points. We'll definitely talk about that, Mausam. Yeah. So with that said, we are now also seeing like the world is saturated with data, right? It's like, so how do you identify the key metrics that truly matter and avoid getting lost in the sea of this entire information? Like everybody's talking about data, but what are those key points to identify the key metrics?
Oh, it's an amazing question. And I would say it's a very cunningly put a question, because the way I see the data, since data is the future and we need to put certain metrics, but it differs from businesses to businesses. But if you and if you know that now we are not talking about data organically generated after Gen AI, we have started talking about synthetic data as well. So
Yeah,
it's not only vast, not only variety, not only the vastness of the data that we deal with, we will deal with some data which no living being generates, right? So it's a different beast altogether. So with that, I think that if you really need to put a metrics on that, I would rather suggest take a step back and look at what are the major questions organizations are trying to answer. And at the very broad level, there are majorly three questions everyone is dwelling today. The first means is, now that we have a lot of data, how do we manage that data?
yeah,
Right. The second question is that now we can manage the data. How do we harness the full power of the data towards achieving the final organization goal or industry goal or whatever the goal is? And final question and final metrics one need to put is that all these two are fine, but we need to provide a guidance about fair usage of data. That's primarily the data security. And if you really look at these three questions, a lot of metrics and KPIs comes within that. Because the first question, what I said, right? If you say that how do I manage data, then it deals with the overall infrastructure, the manpower, the trainings, the future readiness, the technology that you need, and how do you manage and govern those technologies, right? The next
exactly.
question, as I said, that how do we harness the full power of data? And that talks about that how do we develop a true data organization? How do we drive data culture? So it's not only then just the IT. You need to put your metrics around that, the overall culture, people, other people understanding data or not. A typical example what I give, that if a person joins in your organization, after a few days, definitely he would know where the cafeteria is. But I have seen large organization after spending years and years, one group doesn't know what and how the data is used in the other group, right? So
Yeah,
that's definitely a big challenge. And that's where you need to put some guidance around that. So basically, it's how you break the silos. And then
exactly.
finally, if you talk about data security, you can all talk about the 6 principles of data security and privacy. So the reason I try to answer in this way, because I think that it's right now, since the data is becoming big, and we are saying that multiple lines between industries and the organizations are getting blurred very fast, we possibly need to look at things holistically. It's not just about one department or just to find best practices of one project. Rather, we need to look at it as an organization which is contributing to the industry.
Fantastic. Great analysis of this data. Yeah, I completely agree. Even we try to do so, rather being only looking at one side of data or one data source coming in and only looking at one side of data, taking data as a whole, and how do you make sure that your make sure who is collecting the data, who is governing the data. That really needs a lot of thinking. And now you also
And you never said whose data it is.
yeah, yeah, I will come to that in my next questions, definitely. So you also used GAI, which everybody in the industry, whether it is healthcare, insurance, or any other banking domains, everybody is talking about GAI. So because you use that, I think our next discussion point can be on that. With GAI evolving every day, how do you envision the future of data analytics? And what trends do you see emerging in coming years by in the evolving of GEI?
Oh man, just you are making me feel like an oracle, right? Possibly I
Yeah,
need to start predicting future as an astrologer. But I am an IT person,
yeah,
and as I
your views on it. Your views on it.
yeah.
Yeah,
So here I'll try to stay away from life sciences, but just excuse me a bit because that's
yeah,
where I spend most of my time. So if some of the experiences goes in there and some of the example goes in there, please excuse me. But
not a
but
problem.
I think it's right because right now we are living in a strange world, right? And so far all we learned about artificial intelligence, it was a distinctive artificial intelligence. Now we are talking about generative artificial intelligence. And primarily the model that is governing, that is driving this, is large language modeling, right? So it has different names. It can be llama, it can be gpt, it can be different things, but the fundamentally it's large language modeling. And what it means that it is like a person who can read a book and
Yeah,
can understand it and can get and can get a knowledge from there, right? So which is drastically different from our traditional AI. So this is something very new to the world, and everyone is talking about it, as you said, right? And sitting right on the hype cycle. So there are hundreds of use cases, I think millions of possibilities. Some are true, some are not working. So everyone is trying to figure out what the future could be. But one area we are seeing a drastic interest and a huge potential, that's on interactive search. Even if you have and this is where I'll come to life sciences. Like life sciences, if you are discovering a drug, it's very difficult to understand that who is doing the same thing for you, or what will work and what will not work. And it's millions, sometimes billions of dollars are invested in drug discovery. So knowing it early always helps, and it's just not one dimensional knowledge. It talks about that whether a particular protein would work with a binding, or it can be certain APIs, or maybe what are the MNAs are going in, what kind of regulations are there in different countries, what kind of stages it might fail. So there are hundreds of things, and most of the time searching this information is very difficult. And that's why we see that interactive search is a very, very interesting field, where you just not only search using one statement, but you get a summarize and you start navigating through the summary and try to find out what is right. And what's happening in the back end, it's not that it's just getting you it's just not getting you the document. It's actually reading through the documents, giving you a summary, and not only one document, but the host of the documents. And if you
exactly.
and it's Clarivate, we are in that spot, and we have implemented interactive search powered by large language model, and that's out there. You can try, but the thing is that if you want to try, you have to be a customer.
Yeah, yeah,
So I
yeah.
think interactive search is a great thing. But the biggest concern right now with that's coming in is that what is the fair usage of data? Now it's not only creates a data for you, creates an information for you, but it can come with fair bit of biasness. It can come with a fair bit of what we call hallucinations, which
Yes.
are very convincing. And sometimes we have seen these models are very smart in lying. And when I say lying, that means it gives a very convincing answer, which is not true. So how do we understand that? So
True.
these are the few areas definitely we need to work on, and we are working on, and industry needs to evolve in those directions.
Great, great information on that. And I would like to also add on the summarization which you brought. We also had during one of the conference recently, we had invested in this. Like we understood the need of the hour today, and like we have the data everywhere. We have because I again come from healthcare, I will again use the healthcare, or I can use any other this one. So we can. How are we going making sure for an end user that he gets a summary after couple of requests to the system? Like if he gets, if for example, if he's talking to a patient and he wants the summary of last 5 encounters, is there a way we can provide him? So generative AI enables us to provide such kind of summary, and we have done that as part of our one of the conference, and we have that solution as well, where we enable the provider with the entire summary of the patient's history. It's a one-stop shop, and we have achieved that, and that was very well validated in one of the conference as well. So
Absolutely, absolutely.
yeah. Yeah, with that being said, I also picked one line from your explanation where you were more emphasizing on how transparent are you with your data, right? So that makes me ask another question. Sorry for again asking you or putting in a spot. The concept of explainable AI in GAI, right? Which is gaining attraction. Everybody is talking about explainable AI, and even in our company, we are working on a couple of POCs on that. So, what do you think? Like your views on how important it is for AI and analytics to provide transparent explanations for their recommendations and predictions?
Again, a great question. And as I told you earlier, if you ask a question, I'll definitely answer. So if you don't like the answer, that's not my responsibility.
Yeah.
But 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 uh, but rightly you said, right, there is a lot of buzz around that. Uh, and what I'm hearing whenever I talk to different people in the industry, there is no uniform consensus in the world saying that whether explainable AI is the way to go or the black box AI can survive. It seems that is uh, still a duality in the world, right? Few people are saying that it's okay, few people are saying it's not okay. But this is my take, and it's what I'm going to say. It's personally my take. I think no one likes anything which they don't understand, or
Correct.
at least they cannot explain the outcome logically, right? And so if we don't move towards a more of a black white box AI, in that case what's happened that since I don't understand that, possibly the adoption will be little less. And as I told you earlier, right, when we were working in this generative AI and we were training this large language models, we saw that these models are extremely smart in line. When I say extremely smart in line, that means they produce a result which is very convincing, but are not
Mhm.
true. And if you just run those through a black box model, that can create a lot of fake news as fake ideas, right? So you need to have something inbuilt so that at least some level of transparency in the model. So I would clearly say that whatever model you build, at least in the in future world, it has to have the three major legs of transparency. The first is that whether the model is transparent or not, like we know that hey, this goes in, this is what is going to come out, but this is why it's going to come out, right? The second
Yeah.
part is that can we explain the model, that explainability part of it, right? So that means that if something is happening, what it is doing. And the final part is that once the outcome is coming out, can we interpret through our logical reasoning or through our business understanding, right? Unless these three comes, I think we will always question the outcome of generative AI, and we will always have the doubt of explainable AI, and it's going to be a big topic in almost all conversations whenever we start picking these ideas.
Yeah, you explained the explainable AI very transparently. Thanks for that. Yeah, so now that we started with the data, we started with what are the key metrics, and we also spoke about GA and it's evolving, how we have to be ready for it. We also think that sometimes everybody in today's world talks about data, and all take any industry, take any data companies, they say we have a huge data, or we work on data, we do data management, we do data security and all that, right? So we sometimes we start thinking like we should we question ourselves, like how data ready are we, or what is the data culture in our company, and who owns the data in the org, or who is collecting that data? So any thoughts, any your views on that, on those?
So let me see if I understood your question right. And I have a couple of clarifications, because that's where it's a dangerous domain to deal with, because I come from a company which sells data as its primary source of business, right? So when you ask about this data readiness, are you asking about how data ready Clarivate is, or as a generic industry statement?
As a generic industry, like if the industry has to question themselves, do they have to do this homework and then go to the market? In that sense, in the generic industry, should they also analyze themselves, like how data ready are we when we are saying we are a data company?
What do you get from your customer? This is absolutely obvious. You cannot just dwell with your data privacy, right? But at the same point of time, data readiness is a journey. And the way I define data readiness primarily in two parts. One is that, is your company ready to utilize the data to drive the business benefit? That's the first part. And the second part is that, how are we governing the data that we have? Because these two are very distinct but extremely related for the purpose of business, right? So if you have an answer to these, and almost I believe try both our journey, and different companies finds themselves in different part of the journey. But if I talk about my company, so we take data security as the utmost priority. So that lives at the top of our priority list. So we don't do anything which compromises the data security or data privacy. So that's a gold standard what we do. And because for that, we put a huge governance structure using which we can, and then put a lot of metrics using which you can restrict the usage or the unfair usage. So that's what really. But the other part of that, like if you ask that how data ready, like whether you are using data for the business purpose, if you ask me, I strongly believe, again, it's a journey, but no company is truly data ready for that purpose, because all big companies, they have their own silos. And the biggest question, I think what you said in the beginning, that who owns the data? So that's a big question for everyone. Is it whose data it is? Is it who is collecting the data? Is it who is storing the data? That's IT. Is it who is using the data to create an insight? That's your business team. Or who is building a product using that? Maybe you're the business. Or who is selling a product, right? Who is the sales team? So that's a big question all the time. But if you ask me, I think in true aspect, I would say that in future, if you really want to look at the ideal case, then the organization needs to be absolutely democratic about data. So that's I call data democratization. That means that everyone who needs data for certain purpose, definitely it has to align with the company goals. They can access it seamlessly and most efficiently. Definitely there has to be some custodians of it, some governance model built around that, but that should not restrict anyone who is willing to use the data for fair purpose. And if a company can do that, definitely that will make a company complete data ready. But it's easier said than done, because it's not only technology. There are a host of other things that goes in building that culture in the organization.
Exactly. That culture has to be built within the organization. Yeah. And you spoke about data privacy and security, where things like challenges within data come in, right? Challenges and opportunities within data. So the next question on that: how can organizations strike a balance between utilizing data for innovation and addressing the privacy concerns? Because because of the evolution of generative AI, we say we are doing innovations and all that, and we also get a questions from our customers saying, then how is my data protected? So what are your thoughts on the privacy concerns there?
Okay, so is it you're saying that if customer ask a question, how private is my data? How are you managing that? Is that what you're asking?
How do the organizations today, how can the organizations strike a balance between this, like when they are utilizing the data for innovation and then also addressing the privacy concerns? Like how do they strike the business balance between doing that?
So as I told you, right, it's a journey, right? And everyone is always doing this balancing act, because let's forget about any company right now in the world. But if you really look at the history of innovation, and that's one conversation had happened few months back in Congressman. They say that, hey, let the industry evolve first, and the privacy and accuracy will do a catch-up game after that, right? So that's really one way of thinking. Other way of thinking is that no, since we are in active business, a potential data breach or data loss can create significant damage, not just business, but can damage the social balance as well, right? So we cannot be we cannot do the catch-up game. Rather, we need to stay ahead of the curve, right? So that's a continuous challenge. So I believe that the best way of balancing act is that really what you need to judge which type of businesses you are in and which type of data that you are managing, right? And if you are doing that, then let's follow a few principles, right? Let's make sure that definitely you are following this PET principle. So do you know what PET is?
No, it would be helpful if you can explain that.
It's privacy enhancing tools. So basically, there are various technology tools there which primarily talks about that. How can we anonymize data? How can we provide some diffusions in the data? And that means that we will not structurally change the data so that it doesn't lose the overall essence of the data, but we'll make sure that it cannot be hacked easily. Right. Then the third thing can be that can we superly distribute data and restrict different people who are building products with the data, right? And can we put some restrictions there? So these are various, I think, privacy enhancing techniques. So if you follow these techniques right, then you can still manage your privacy or manage your data privacy in your organization and can still use it for your innovation. So that's the balancing act I think CDOs or CIOs are doing today.
Great. Yeah. Now again, picking some words from your answers, so that we spoke about data privacy, we spoke about who owns the data, how data ready are we, right? There is a buzz in the market today, like how organizations should do, like because the AI and generative AI are evolving a lot. AI people, there is a buzz saying AI is changing the roles of CIO and CTO in the industry. So, but there is no clarity on that. So we just wanted your thoughts on it.
When you say no clarity, I think all CDOs or CIOs, especially if senior leaders are there in IT, they are getting the blunt. Because traditionally, CIO's role was to manage cost, right? And manage typically the IT cost. But that's not going to be the case anymore. Because now, since we are living in a world of data and almost all organizations are data organizations, so everybody needs to be data savvy, right? And for that, it's very important that CIOs really start thinking that the data that we gathered or captured, how can we utilize to create value for the organization? Because that's what matters most. It just cannot be cost. And when I say value for the organization, that means that they need to interact more with business. They need to interact more with markets, and that's what's happening. And they need to really see that how we can make sure the kind of data that we manage can be utilized by someone who need it the way they need it, when they need, where they need it.
Correct.
And that's how the CIO roles are changing today. So it's from going from cost to value. And nowadays, if you really ask for the CIOs, I think one of the metrics all they measure that what is the value that you are generating for the company. It's not that what is the cost you are bringing it down.
Exactly. Yeah, very well said. Yeah, and I believe that it is impacting their decision making as well. Like these inputs are impacting their decision making. So with that as an input, like the next question, what I'm thinking of, like should we also think about when these kind of data and generative AI and AI are impacting the decision making? How has this data analytics empowered the IT leaders like CIOs and CTOs to make more informed strategic decisions? So everybody is talking about that, and also we would want to learn, like, are there any lessons learned or lessons learned of the failures while implementing this data and making decisions out of data?
I would say we are living in a world which is full of experiments. So failure is a part of the game. And if you go by the IT statistics, a significant of project people undertake in IT actually fails. So when it fails, I mean that it's not that it didn't uh, produce any result, but maybe it didn't produce the adequate result for which the project was taken for. So there could be many definitions for failure. So and the failure type changes as you move from project to organization. In project, there could be hundreds of reasons, right? New technology, objective not met, maybe the money spent is too much, right? Or the duration is too long. There could be many things, but I think as an IT leader, you should not be worried about that. You should take a step back and decide that how can we make our organization, and I'm talking about the technology organization, future ready. Because unless the technology division of an organization, or rather, I'll not call technology division of the organization, unless the technology backbone of the organization is not ready, I think we all have to agree that the organization is not ready to run its business, because all organizations in the world are IT organizations, all organizations in the world are data organizations today. So it's very important for us, a senior technology leader, it can be CIO, CDO, or anyone who is at senior leadership, they needs to have a clear vision that if I'm running this organization or this is the technology, where it is going. And for that, the next thing, they need to have a roadmap, because the technologies are changing every now and then. And today, what is cutting edge, tomorrow something may fade out. And that's where he needs to be pragmatic about the technology or tool selections. The reason he needs to be pragmatic, because right now, even if you look at the world of analytics, it's full of fragmented specialized services.
True.
Right. And the services are provided by hundreds or not thousands of vendors or providers or customers. Sometimes it's very difficult to really stitch all the services together to bring out one product. So he needs to be really understand that what's there. Then definitely the data management and governance, that's a big thing, right? You just cannot throw everything out on the ocean. And finally, I think a lot of areas, this is where people think possibly not that important, but it's super important. If you're building a large organization, you need to think of your talent as well. And not the talent today, but what could be your future talent, so that they can support the future tools and technologies that you're investing on. So that's the few things. What we learned is very important if you really want to build just not only data analytics organization, but overall an IT analytics organization.
Yes. Yeah. Again, back to the data-driven culture, right? Like, how do we manage the data governance and management? So with that understanding of data governance and management, or data culture being very much important for organization success, how important it is for in a long-term success, like how should the IT companies foster this data-driven culture across the organization, keeping in mind the data governance and management, and for their, like, what is the inputs for the long-term success for it, the key success factors?
I think somewhere I was reading today morning, I think the best short-term strategy is to have a long-term strategy. So you should always look for long-term. I know a lot of time we are asked to produce result in few months. Sometimes it's not possible, but this is the reason I talked about this, because there's always a duel that we play, because we need to produce quick results so that we can have a long-term strategy. But without we have a long-term strategy, we cannot win the game. And that's clearly comes, I'll pick it my last answer. That's where the vision and the roadmap comes in, right? But to specifically answer what you asked, I think culture is the biggest thing, and you just cannot build the culture on one day. And the culture is such that everyone would know that how to use data, why to use data, and when to use data, or where to go, where to find this data in the organization. So that needs a fair bit of understanding of the domain. That needs fair bit of understanding of the company vision. There needs fair bit of understanding of the various tools and technologies are in offer. That needs a fair bit of goal alignment as well. That needs fair bit of self-enthusiasm as well. So there are a lot of things that goes in building overall the company culture. But if you specifically ask about the data accuracy part, I would say there is a golden six principle of data privacy and data accuracy, especially on the data governance side. Follow those six principles.
Yes. Yeah, because we were more drilling down into data culture, data governance and management. One last part in this area was like, because we deal with a lot of data today, do you think we have to be even consider the ethical part of it? Like, do we need to be ethical when we are handling the data analytics? As data analytics becomes more prevalent, what ethical conditions, consideration should an IT company keep in mind to ensure the responsible and transparent data is in usage?
Have your moral right and put privacy in your design only. So that means that when you start thinking of a product or delivery, so you take data privacy at the very core of it, right? You build a product so that it can support all the 6 principles of data privacy. And when I talk about 6 principles, it can be the fairness and transparency of the data. Are we keeping it? We can do the purpose limitations. That means we limit the purpose of using the data. It can be minimalizations of data. That means we are already giving the data that only you need. It can be accuracy. It can be storage limitations. It can be integrity and confidentiality that you built into the system that you're developing. So the best part is that you start thinking from it. You just don't think, hey, it's possibly another check item that I need to check when the tester comes in.
Yeah, true, true. Uh, so 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 we discussed a lot of data, its evolvement, data analytics, GAI, AI, data governance, management. What should the data companies think about? Who should own the data, right? So we have our some of the viewers who are aspiring to be data professionals. So I wanted your thoughts in those areas as well. So in keeping that in mind, like while tech companies are laying off, there are layoffs happening and increasing in every year with the GAI possibly replacing the data analysts. So do you think is there a difference in trend seeing now, or and should people be worried? How should they be prepared for the future?
Oh man, the way I say, last year we were struggling very hard to hire people. This year we are flooded with resumes. So that somehow defines the situation in the market. But I would not say it's like, but I think what has happened last 2 years, whoever spent significant amount of time in the industry have never seen that in our life, right? Because these 2 years were exceptions. So my suggestion is that not to look at these 2 years, rather look at the overall trend, how this industry is maturing and how the requirement of the industry is changing. Because I think for next couple of quarters, some normalizations will happen. But if the developers have the right skill, no one is going to lay off, because no one wants to get no one wants to leave someone who can win a business for them. And that's even I don't know whether you know it or not, right? I run my own YouTube channel.
I was about to
That's
come to it. I am a big follower of
that's
your data biceps.
yeah. So that's more as a hobby I run, but this is
Yeah.
a topic I talk very frequently there. So I believe that people need to understand that the skill is the most important, the center part of their existence. So definitely they have to be skillful. But when I talk about skills, especially in the world of technology, I've seen they say that, hey, do I know Python? Do I know Java? Do I know SQL? Do I
Yeah.
do I know do I know DevOps? Understand, that's not skill. That's something possibly will get replaced very soon, because now even if you realize, even if you know that yesterday Microsoft announced that now you can call Python in the Excel and it's part of their fabric, right? These technologies are making this technology so easy. One
Yeah.
example, Copilot, right? You
Yeah.
don't need to write a code. It writes the basic code, and over a period of time it will only improve. So knowing technology helps, and definitely that's something one needs to know, but that's not the end of skill. Then the question comes, what are the other skills we are talking about? The next thing what people need to understand, especially in the world of data, because we primarily work in the decision support areas, you need to understand if we are doing something, why we are doing it. And that comes with the fair bit of understanding of business knowledge. And
Got it.
finally, if someone is trying to move a little farther ahead, especially in the world of data analytics, he needs to be a bloody good damn bloody good storyteller. Otherwise,
Yeah.
unless he can tell stories right, and stories right with data, it's very difficult to convince a business case, right? And unless you can convince someone with a business case or with your story, no one is going to buy your product. And if someone is not going to buy your product, then why the hell are you in the industry? So it's very simple.
Yeah, thank you. I think because the viewers or the subscribers of your data biceps might know all these skills, but I would try, because I'm a big fan and I follow you on the data biceps. I would recommend the others also to do that. One, two is. For the viewers here of today's who have joined us, a quick suggestion or quick, because I see a lot of people calling. I recently met one of them in a temple last week, and they say, I just asked him like, hey, what do we do? And he said, I am a data scientist. Sorry, he said, I am a scientist. I was like, in my mind, I was about to say, hey, like it was. I was thinking him as a scientist. Then he said, I'm a data. So now when everybody wants to call themselves as a data scientist in this rapidly evolving landscape, what are quick tips for them? Like if I'm not into data today, I want to get into data science because there is an evolving market going on. I'm into some business analysis or I'm into some other application or technology. For people like me, what are your thoughts for us to be and learn in a proper direction and be a proper data scientist and not only for the namesake?
Oh, that's a great question, and I think that's like something, a disease that I told you, Sridhar, before we start, that since you said it's a fireside chat, I'm gonna firing you. I told you that if you ask me a question, I'll reply. So don't ask me a question what you don't want to listen to.
Sure. Yeah, I understand that.
So
Yeah.
I'll be brutally honest.
Yeah.
This is a problem that we are dealing with globally. It's not because that people are wrong and like only one part of the world is at fault, but it's just because data science suddenly blew out of proportion and people started seeing that if someone is coming with that fancy tag, typically the salaries are on the higher side. So since the money is flowing in that direction, a lot of people aspired to become a data scientist, and that then this euphoria got created. But truly, if you look in the value chain, where does this scientist belong? The way I see, there are really three parts of the value chain. One part is someone who is building those algorithms, right? When we talk about generative AI, what is there in the back, right? It is a large language model, and large language model is a common framework. That it could be Llama 2, that could be GPT, that could be bot. So whatever are there in the back, right? Someone is writing those algorithms. So these guys are super specialists. So these guys are double PhDs and they have done mathematics. That's something I tend to call data scientist. Yeah. But there could be some other jargons for them as well. But that's where rather I would say algorithm specialist.
Okay.
Number of people are very less there. And the reason number of people are very less because mathematics is difficult. Not everyone understands mathematics.
True.
Then the next, rather the last part of the chain. So I talked about the top part of the chain. The last part of the chain, if you see, it's primarily the data engineers, right? Who really do all the grunt work, right? Say that really get the data from different sources. They try to massage the data. They put the data into the framework so that this can be used by someone to produce certain result. So that is also an interesting. So typically we call data engineer in broad ways. And then it comes a middle layer, right? And that's the most interesting layer. And typically we call that data analyst layer. So who knows a bit of the algorithm, who knows how a bit of the data engineering, but the real value they bring in, they know the business as well. And they know that how to put all these two into context so that you can generate some result which ultimately benefits a company. And that's the real value. So my suggestion is that if you think you are super good in mathematics and you can dwell with technologies really well, then aim for this algorithm specialist, because though the number of people are less, the pay is really, really good, and that market is not going to go away anytime soon. If you think that you are good with technologies like the SQLs, if you know that how to write ETL and how efficiently write ETL and how to manage various jobs, I still believe there is a very big job, very big market for the data engineers. Definitely, they should try for this data engineering because there's a big market for that. And when I say the bottom of the value chain, don't undermine. Same thing is it's bad. It's equally good. But it's something more achievable. If you don't like mathematics, or if you have not studied mathematics or statistics in your school, then so typically this is where the storytelling part comes in, right? And this is where I believe if you're coming from a B school, right, and have fair bit of understanding of technology, and typically we see a lot of our technologists go to do their MBA, and then they become the business analyst or the data analyst, right? So if you are good in there, I would recommend you to focus that part of the value chain, because most of especially the services companies, they look for this BS. If you're even joining a product company, you still see that these product managers are coming from this particular group. I hope this answered.
Definitely, yes. This will definitely help the people who want to move into the data side. This will definitely help them. Yeah, and I think we are like we should also. I'm also checking on the time. So to summarize, like because we started from data, how did it evolve? We also spoke about privacy, and we spoke about how it is impacting on the decision making, and then we also spoke about what should be the preparation for the aspiring professionals. To as a last summary, if you want to quickly in 1 or 2 lines talk about the future, like in next 5 years, where should we see ourselves and what should be our preparation towards be like having all this data governance, data maintenance, data management, security, keeping all this in mind, where should we see ourselves in next 5 years? And then after that, we'll take the questions which has been posted.
Our sales means as an IT professionals?
Yeah, as an IT professionals, people in IT or organizations who want to be see or evolve themselves into the data companies.
That's a great question. And again, I see. So we are standing in an inflection point right now, and it's very difficult to predict what the future gonna be, because last 1 year or last 2 to 3 years, the work in AI side was really fascinating. And I strongly believe that it's absolutely foolish to think that this generative AI will not grow. I know there is some news going on in the market that Gen AI is going to be bankrupt in just a few months.
Yeah.
Trust me, I don't think that's going to happen, because a lot of things fall in places to a lot of things need to fall in places so that it happens. But I don't think it's going to happen. So this AI will come in. So let's not be an ostrich and stick our head in the ground, right? And a lot of the work we are doing will either get augmented or will get automated because of the artificial intelligence. Like, and when we talk about that, it's not just the mundane work. We are seeing some creative work is also getting automated, right? So that's something that's going to happen. So the question is, and this is again, I'm not predicting a future, but this is what I believe is going to happen. Since you need to collaborate a lot with machines in future, there is no way but to learn how these machines work.
Correct.
And that's going to be the best strategy. So and in order to be in that, I'll just take a reference from my earlier, I think you asked it earlier, right? What this guy's gonna do. I still believe there is no replacement for a good or relevant skill, right? But at the same point of time, you need to understand that the business well, and at the same point of time, you need to be a good storyteller, because that's where more human value you add into the system.
Got it. Yeah. Great summary. I would request you to answer a couple of questions. I'll just take a couple of them looking at the time. The first question is from Anita Lakshmipati. Can AI algorithms or models be used to identify the patterns or trends in large volumes of IT data, such as logs, event streams, or network traffic?
How do you think Copilot works?
True. It works. It works on the similar logic.
And then something. This is a conversation. Possibly, I'm gonna break few hearts here. Especially when you talk about these logs and what you said. You said logs and another thing you said. Right?
Logs, event streams, and network traffic.
Okay, logs, event string, network traffic, a lot of this to deal with DevOps. I think the person works in DevOps, if I'm not wrong, right?
Yeah.
Think that
No,
DevOps work is more or less very rule-driven work, right? And there is a discussion that possibly that's something is going to hit really hard when this Copilot comes to its full strength.
Yeah, true. Yeah. So another question is like your thoughts on companies using data monetization. Again, I'm peeping into your areas, what your company does. So, but there is a question saying your thoughts on companies using data monetization as a strategy for generating revenue.
That's what we do. That's our business is. But I think, okay, jokes apart, but I think the real essence of the question is that, is it, so data monetization is a fair business. Let me explain you like this. But it has to be a legit data monetization. That means I'm not stealing anyone's data without his permission, and I'm monitoring and monetizing it, right? So there are ways to make sure fair usage of data, and one of that is that we take consents from users saying that, hey, are you willing to give your data and are you willing to get it monetized? So if someone is raising that consent, then there is no harm in monetizing the data.
True. That means it's a fair job to do a data monetization that can be a good revenue as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Quickly, next one. What do you think would be some of the key challenges for a practitioner while detecting the anomalies, the deflections through the data after data integration? So the summary of this question is how accurate the modern data leveraging technologies are while detecting the anomalies within the data.
I'm not sure if I'm understanding the question properly.
Yeah. So if there are now we have in the world of healthcare, we have claims. Not only in insurance, also we have claims. But when the claims get rejected for some reasons, there could be something missing, some anomalies within the data. So now everybody in this market are doing predictive algorithms to see what are those anomalies, and before the claims goes out, identify those anomalies and have that gaps fixed. So are these technologies doing it in the right way, or what is your thoughts on that, on the modern technologies, what we are leveraging to identify the anomalies within the data?
Yes, that's all the data analytics does, right? They try to identify pattern and the anomalies in the data. So I think that's, in one sentence, summarizes the whole industry. And if I understand your question right, because what you meant, and literally, if I take this claims statement a little forward, what happens every time when you raise a claim and it gets rejected, right? And if it is a false positive, that means it's a right claim that's getting rejected, so the manual intervention is needed. So the overall cost of the claim increases significantly. So if you can put if you can put an algorithm, so typically those algorithms are there, these are fault tolerant algorithms. So when you put there, and that identifies that possibly the earlier system made a false positive, so you create those anomalies, and it goes through this various rule system and throws you back. At least they can reduce the overall volume of the claims on which you need a rework. That saves significant amount of money for an insurer.
Exactly.
So that's absolutely a valid algorithm to have.
Yeah, that's really important for any of the claims or insurance companies. Yeah. Last question, Mausam, with your permission. What are some of the common pitfalls or mistakes that organizations should avoid when embarking on a data analytics journey within an IT department?
I answered this question earlier, right? So the biggest pitfall is that limiting everything into the IT department. That's the biggest pitfall.
Yeah.
As I told you, right, the data needs to be democratized, but it needs to have the right governance policies. I'm sorry, the right fair usage and governance policies using which anyone can use the data. But when you are doing it, I'm thinking the real essence of question is what are the guards and IT needs to have,
Yeah,
right? That possibly
exactly.
is the right question. I'll go
That's
back to
good.
the original 6 principles of data privacy. That means that whether you are ensured, so whether you're ensuring a process, governance process in which you really ensuring that's a really ensuring the fair usage of the fair usage of data, the lawful usage of data, because different countries the policies and policies may be different. So are you encompassing all of that? Are you doing that? Are you providing only a limited set of data that the person need? It's not that you're giving the uh, uh, entire gamut of data, but at the end of the day, he needs just one column from there. It cannot be that, right? So
Correct.
because the more data you give to someone, the chance of abuse increases significantly.
Exactly.
And that's your data minimalizations. Then you talk about the accuracy. Then you talk about that whether you can store data or not, right? A lot of time what happens is you cannot let other person store the data, right? And then finally the integrity and confidentiality. So it's a combination of tools, technologies, and policies that an IT needs to go in. But the biggest pitfall is IT says it's my data, I'm not going to share with anyone.
True, true. Yeah, even in the personal life, it happens the same. Yeah, thanks a lot, Mausam, for your time and great inputs, great thoughts, and it was a great learning for all of us here.